She thought stealing my bird would go unpunished, but when I unleashed a swarm of bees in her backyard, the entire neighborhood learned never to mess with me. Buckle up for a wild HOA saga filled with petty revenge, escalating chaos, and a showdown that'll leave you speechless. If you love unhinged neighborhood drama and epic revenge stories, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss a single second of this crazy tale. Let's dive in. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the manicured lawns of Willow Creek, a suburban enclave where every blade of grass seemed to bow to the HOA's iron rule. Emily Harper, a single woman in her late 30s, had lived in this neighborhood for 3 years. Her modest 2-story home a sanctuary for her and her beloved parrot, Mango. The bird's vibrant green feathers and playful squawks were her daily joy, a splash of color in her otherwise quiet life. Mango's cage sat proudly on her front porch, where he'd chatter at passers-by, delighting neighbors with his mimicry of doorbell chimes and car horns. Emily had no enemies in Willow Creek, or so she thought, until the day she crossed paths with Linda Grayson, the HOA president whose reputation for enforcing rules with ruthless precision was legendary. Linda, a woman in her 50s with a perpetually pinched expression, ruled Willow Creek like a monarch. Her clipboard was her scepter, her bi-weekly newsletters a decree of her unyielding standards. No one dared leave a bicycle on their lawn or paint their mailbox a shade not pre-approved by her color chart. Emily, a graphic designer who worked from home, had always followed the rules, her house pristine, her dues paid on time. But Linda's watchful eyes seemed to linger on Emily's porch, where Mango's cage drew attention. Linda had once muttered something about unsightly pet displays during a neighborhood meeting, but Emily brushed it off, assuming her cheerful parrot wasn't worth the HOA's scrutiny. That assumption shattered one crisp autumn morning when Emily stepped onto her porch to find Mango's cage empty. The door hung open, the latch unhooked, and Mango was gone. Her heart plummeted as she scanned the yard, calling his name, her voice echoing unanswered. The neighborhood was silent, save for the hum of a distant lawnmower. Panic gave way to suspicion as she noticed faint footprints in the dew-soaked grass leading toward Linda's house across the street. Emily's mind raced. Linda had never hidden her disdain for anything that disrupted her vision of suburban perfection. Could she have taken Mango? The thought seemed absurd, but the footprints were undeniable. Emily marched to Linda's doorstep, her pulse pounding, but no one answered her knocks. Peering through the window, she saw Linda's pristine living room, not a feather in sight. Defeated, she returned home, filing a report with animal control and posting flyers around Willow Creek. Days passed with no sign of Mango, and whispers began to circulate. Neighbors recounted Linda's complaints about the bird's noise, how she'd called it a nuisance at the last HOA meeting. Emily's grief hardened into resolve. If Linda had taken Mango, she'd pay, not with confrontation, but with something far more creative. Emily's plan began to form as she sat in her backyard, staring at the beehive she'd nurtured for years as a hobby. The bees, her quiet companions, buzzed contentedly in their wooden box, producing honey she shared with neighbors. But bees, she knew, could be more than just pollinators. They could be agents of chaos. Linda's backyard, a pristine oasis of roses and manicured hedges, was her pride and joy. Emily imagined the havoc a swarm could wreak. It was petty, yes, but so was stealing a beloved pet. As night fell, Emily donned her beekeeper suit, her mind set on a single goal. Linda would learn what it meant to cross her. Under the cover of darkness, Emily carried a small section of her beehive to Linda's backyard. The moon cast eerie shadows as she carefully placed the buzzing box near Linda's prized rose bushes. She opened the hive just enough to let the bees explore, knowing they'd spread out, drawn to the flowers. She didn't intend harm, just disruption. By morning, Linda's backyard would be a buzzing nightmare, her perfect garden a casualty of Emily's revenge. As she slipped back to her house, a pang of guilt hit her, but the image of Mango's empty cage snuffed it out. Linda had started this war, and Emily was ready to escalate. The next morning, Willow Creek awoke to chaos. Linda's frantic screams echoed through the neighborhood as she stumbled out of her house, swatting at the air. Her backyard was a living cloud of bees. Her roses swarmed, her lawn furniture overturned in her panic. Neighbors gathered, drawn by the commotion, whispering as Linda flailed, her perfect composure shattered. Emily watched from her porch, her face a mask of concern, though inside she felt a flicker of triumph. The bees hadn't stung anyone. They were docile unless provoked. But their presence was enough to turn Linda's sanctuary into a battlefield. Animal control arrived, followed by a beekeeper Emily had discreetly tipped off, who promised to relocate the bees safely. Linda, red-faced and disheveled, pointed fingers at everyone, but no one suspected Emily, the quiet woman with the missing parrot. The HOA meeting that evening was electric with tension. Linda, still shaken, ranted about the vandalism in her yard, demanding an investigation. Emily sat silently, her heart racing as neighbors speculated about the bees. Some called it an act of nature, others a prank gone too far. Linda's eyes darted to Emily, but she had no proof, only suspicion. Emily's plan had worked flawlessly, but as she listened to Linda's tirade, she realized this was only the beginning. Linda wasn't the type to let a slight go unanswered, and Emily's victory, sweet as it was, had painted a target on her back. As the meeting adjourned, Emily knew the next move was Linda's, and she braced herself for what was to come. The days following the bee incident were deceptively calm in Willow Creek, but Emily sensed a storm brewing. Linda's backyard had been restored, the bees removed, but her pride remained wounded. Emily kept a low profile, tending to her garden and checking her empty porch daily, hoping for Mango's return. She'd won the first battle, but the war was far from over. Linda, ever the strategist, began her counterattack subtly. Notices appeared in mailboxes, citing obscure HOA bylaws about hazardous activities like beekeeping. Emily's hive, once a neighborhood curiosity, was now labeled a danger, with a formal complaint filed against her. The notice demanded she remove the hive within a week or face fines. Emily's blood boiled. Linda was striking at her livelihood, her passion. Beekeeping wasn't just a hobby. It was her therapy, her connection to nature. She considered fighting the complaint, gathering signatures from neighbors who loved her honey, but she knew Linda's influence ran deep. The HOA board was her puppet, and most residents feared her wrath. Emily's mind churned with ideas for retaliation, each more audacious than the last. She settled on a plan that would hit Linda where it hurt most, her reputation. Linda's annual garden party, a showcase of her flawless backyard and social dominance, was a week away. Emily saw an opportunity to turn the event into a spectacle of humiliation. Late at night, Emily crept into Linda's backyard again, this time armed with a bag of eco-friendly, water-soluble dye. She'd read about it online, a harmless prankster's tool that turned sprinklers into colorful fountains. Linda's irrigation system, set to water her lawn at dawn, was the perfect delivery method. Emily poured the dye into the sprinkler heads, her hands steady despite the risk. If caught, she'd face more than HOA fines. She could be charged with trespassing. But the thought of Linda's guests arriving to a neon green lawn fueled her resolve. She finished her work and slipped away, the neighborhood sleeping soundly. The morning of the garden party dawned bright, and Emily watched from her window as Linda's guests arrived, their pastel dresses and khaki slacks a stark contrast to the chaos about to unfold. As the sprinklers activated, gasps turned to laughter, then to murmurs of shock. Linda's lawn glowed an unnatural green, the dye staining her pristine grass. Guests whispered, some snapping photos, others leaving early. Linda's face was a mask of fury as she ordered the sprinklers off, but the damage was done. Her perfect party, her symbol of control, was a neon-stained disaster. Emily sipped her coffee, a smile tugging at her lips. She'd struck again, and Linda's grip on Willow Creek was slipping. But Linda wasn't finished. By evening, a new HOA notice circulated, accusing an unnamed resident of malicious vandalism. The letter promised security cameras and increased patrols, a clear message to Emily. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip, some siding with Linda, others secretly cheering the mystery prankster. Emily felt the walls closing in. Her pranks had been cathartic, but they hadn't brought Mango back. Guilt crept in. Had her revenge gone too far? Yet Linda's relentless campaign against her hive steeled her resolve. This wasn't just about a bird anymore. It was about standing up to a tyrant. Emily knew the next move had to be bolder, something that would force Linda to back down for good. Willow Creek's annual block party was the perfect stage for Emily's next act. The event, held in the community park, was Linda's crowning achievement, a display of her organizational prowess. Emily spent days planning, her graphic design skills coming in handy. She created a series of anonymous flyers styled like official HOA notices, detailing Linda's overreaches, fines for minor infractions, threats to neighbors who dared question her. Emily didn't stop there. She hacked into the HOA's digital sign-in sheet for the block party, adding a surprise element to the event, a petition to oust Linda as president. The night before the party, Emily distributed the flyers under cover of darkness, slipping them into mailboxes and under doormats. Each one called for change, urging residents to sign the petition at the party. She also rigged a small battery-powered projector to display a slideshow on the park's pavilion wall during the event. The slides would reveal Linda's most egregious actions, from bullying neighbors to her suspected role in Mango's disappearance. Emily's heart raced as she set up the projector hidden in a bush. This was her riskiest move yet, a public challenge that could either topple Linda or destroy Emily's standing in Willow Creek. The block party began with music and laughter, the park filled with families enjoying food and games. Linda, dressed in a crisp white dress, mingled with her usual air of authority. Emily blended into the crowd, her nerves taut. As dusk fell, the projector flickered to life. Gasps rippled through the crowd as images appeared. Screenshots of Linda's, threatening emails, photos of her berating neighbors, and a final slide asking, "Who took Mango?" The petition table, set up discreetly near the food stalls, drew a steady stream of signatures. Linda's face drained of color as she realized the tide was turning. Neighbors whispered, some openly confronting her. Emily watched, her heart pounding, knowing she'd ignited a rebellion. Linda's reign was crumbling, but she wasn't defeated yet. She stormed to the petition table, demanding it be shut down, but the organizers, neighbors emboldened by the flyers, stood firm. Emily slipped away, her work done. The next morning, a new notice announced an emergency HOA meeting to vote on Linda's removal. Emily felt a mix of triumph and dread. Had she pushed too far? Would Linda retaliate before the vote? As she sat on her porch, staring at Mango's empty cage, a faint squawk caught her ear. Her heart leapt. Across the street, Linda's garage door was ajar, and inside she glimpsed a flash of green feathers. Emily's breath caught as she crept toward Linda's garage, the squawk growing louder. Mango was there, perched in a cage identical to his own, his feathers ruffled but unharmed. Linda had kept him hidden, likely to silence his noise and assert her control. Fury surged through Emily, but she restrained herself. Confronting Linda now would risk everything. Instead, she waited until night, slipping into the garage with a spare key she'd seen Linda hide under a planter. Mango fluttered to her, his familiar chirps a balm to her soul. She carried him home, her heart swelling with relief, but the war wasn't over. Linda's downfall was imminent, but Emily needed to ensure it was complete. The emergency HOA meeting was a spectacle. Neighbors packed the community center, their voices raised in heated debate. Emily sat quietly, Mango safe at home as the petition signatures were verified. Linda's attempts to defend herself faltered under the weight of evidence, flyers, screenshots, and now whispers of a stolen parrot. When a neighbor mentioned seeing Mango in Linda's garage, the room erupted. Linda's denials were drowned out by calls for a vote. By the meeting's end, she was ousted, her clipboard confiscated, her reign ended. Emily didn't speak, letting the community's anger carry the day. As she left, she saw Linda's defeated slump, a woman undone by her own hubris. Months later, Willow Creek felt lighter. A new HOA president, a kind retiree focused on community over control. Emily's hive was safe, her honey shared freely. Mango sang from his porch cage, his squawks a neighborhood anthem. Linda moved. Away, her house sold to a young family who waved at Emily daily. The bees, the dye, the flyers, all were secrets Emily kept, her silent victory over a tyrant. But as she tended her garden, she wondered if Linda had learned her lesson, or if somewhere she was plotting her own revenge. For now, Emily savored the peace, her parrot by her side, her neighborhood free. If you loved this wild ride of HOA drama and epic revenge, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more unhinged neighborhood sagas. Share your own crazy HOA stories in the comments. We want to hear them all. Until next time, stay petty and keep the drama coming.